We're reading some more Lorenzo Dow in his business ventures. And this is continuing on page 59. Father must have been in Parowan the year before the birth of Pearl, for I found in the records of Parowan City Court, dated June 5th, 1860, sorry, June, June 5th, 1876, L.D. Watson was allowed $10 for prosecuting James Maxwell, Jacob Menchie, Benjamin Mine, Minchie, okay, and Luther Ramsey before the Parowan City Justice Court. Watson was only 31 years of age at this time and had never been to law school. He had, however, studied hard, all the books he could find, and knew the laws quite well at this early date. At Christmas, when it was hard for Father to purchase anything for our stockings, he went to the canyon about 5 miles from town and trapped several wildcats. He tanned the hides himself and made tippets, or shoulder capes, and muffs. He lined these with magenta flannel that he had dyed, as white flannel was the only kind one could purchase at this time. He took cotton batting and quilted it on the flannel in inch checks, using unbleached muslin for the other side, or the side next to the hides. This made them very warm. These fur outfits were for my sister Vivian and me. Nothing before or since stands out in my memory as these lovely fur sets do. Father kept a few saddle horses at home for our use. He owned 2 fine saddles, which he had designed, tooled, and made. One was a large one and one small. They both were beautifully tooled by himself. He also had a pack saddle that he had made. I remember it well because I thought it was the most ingenious thing I had ever seen. On one of his trips into the mountains to round up his horses, he took Claire, is her brother. Claire is her brother. This one. Claire. Sometimes they get an older picture that might give you a clue. Took Claire, who was then 10 years old, Millard 5, and me 1. Oh, and me. Sorry, I was 12. So, all Dad, Claire, was 10, Millard was 5, and Alma Gertrude was 12. Yes, Father and Millard rode the one horse, and Claire and I were on the second horse, and the third one was used to pack. I remember watching Father pack the horse. First, he placed a blanket, then this marvelous pack saddle. The part that fit the animal's back was made of leather, well padded with sheepskin, the wool side down. Above this were 4 hard oak crossbars, firmly riveted to the leather and cut off diagonally at the bottom to fit the sides of the animal. The bars crossed 6 inches above the animal's back, then continued about 6 inches above the cross. Father had made large leather bags on each side, about 20 inch by 24 inch. They had sole leather bottoms about 10 inches in width. Fitted flaps went over the tops to protect and hold tight all food. On this particular trip, these bags were filled with potatoes, ham, home cured, onions, flour, bread, and cookies. Of course, Mother had done the cooking. Some cups, a frying pan, a bucket, and tin plates were fastened to the framework of the pack saddle. Over all this came a mattress filled with deer hair that the Indians had given Father, then quilts. Ropes were used to fasten the load. They were fastened securely to the two singles that held the saddle by going from one side under the horse's belly and fastening on the other with large buckles. Large buckles. We traveled about 9 miles over a well-traveled canyon road, then took off to the right up several steep hills. After we climbed the last steep hill, all of us got off and rested in a flat covered with wild sagebrush and yellow and blue flowers. We mounted the horses again and traveled through thick timbers of spruce and quaking aspens. Father had to cut a great many small quaking aspens down to make the trail wide enough for our horses to go through. At last we camped on an open space not far from a clear running stream of beautiful mountain water. There was a large hill sloping up from our campsite. Father said it was 11,000 feet high and had no timber on it, of course. Because it was above timberline. Father called it Bald Hill. He also told me that he believed I was the first white woman to set foot in those mountains. When we made camp, Father and Claire cut pine and spruce boughs and placed them needles down on the ground. They were placed close together. He put the hair mattresses on this, and there was such a dry, comfortable bed. Then, too, for you who read this and have never slept on pine boughs, try it. The odor is something that carries with it wonderful thoughts. The next day, Father and Claire started out to round up the horses, but Father became so concerned for fear Mildred and I would wander away from camp. Millard. Millard is the little 5-year-old? Yeah. So, on this trip, is the father, Alma's the 12-year-old girl, but she's telling the story, and Edgar's the 10-year-old, and Millard is 5. Okay, and he was so worried about them wandering away from camp and get lost while they were gone, that he sent Claire back to caution us and remain with us that day. The mountains at that time were full of wild animals: deer, bear, cougars, panthers. I promised we would remain near the camp and persuaded Claire and Father to go on with their work. Every day after this, they left us at camp, and we had a glorious time. One afternoon, Father took us to the top of Bald Hill. We could see such a great distance from here. He turned to me and asked me if I were to go home, which way would I go? Oh, Papa, we have made so many turns, I said. I'm not sure, but I think Parowan should be that way. Father was delighted and told me it was as straight as a bird would fly, and that he would not worry about me getting lost. I've always had a keen sense of direction. Father remembered the wild Spanish horses in California that could be purchased for $15 a head. He decided he would make some money if he could bring them to Utah and sell them. He took a young man by the name of Bill Roberts with him and made the trip horseback to California, where he purchased a small band of horses and mules. It has been handed down in our family that our father and grandfather Daniel Porter Clark brought the first Spanish horses from California to Parowan. At that time, the ranges were free, and all one had to do was to brand his horse and have a stallion that would keep the band together, then drive them into the mountains about 10 or 15 miles away and leave them during the summer. In the fall, when it became very cold in the mountains and the snow was deep, it was necessary to round up the horses and drive them out onto the desert. There they were left to exist on the dry desert grass and weeds until the spring grasses grew in the higher countries. Claire and I helped with the horses, and I remember one horse by the name of Creole that had a broken leg. We gathered sagebrush and steeped it in hot water. Then we would soak the horse's leg with this sage tea. After soaking, we would bind it in splints. It wasn't long until she recovered. As the years have gone by, we have found sagebrush tea a wonderful help for any kind of sprain. Father sold some of the horses in Parowan at a good profit, but most of them, in order to start a band for himself, he wrote James about them. And this is the letter, part of the letter. I have never sold so many horses yet as I have been trying to get a start ever since I was in the stock business. My brother-in-law, Edgar L. Clark, bought 2 colts in Kentucky. They cost him nearly $2,000 plus their freight, which was $250. They are running stock from a Mr. Richards stables in Bluegrass Park, Kentucky. Fast horses that would do to put in training. The common California horse here will not average more than 850 pounds and is used only for a saddle horse. If we could cross this Spanish horse with the American Norman or Clyde breed of heavier horses, we can get a good, tough horse. Father did cross the 2 breeds of horses and got a sturdy, tough saddle pony, which proved very useful for rounding up cattle. His small band of horses increased until at one time he owned over 150 head. Father named all his horses and knew them as he did his own children. Some he named by denotation, as did the Indians, like Glass Eye, Midnight, Creole, and Lopsy. Others he named very long, odd names after cities and counties of his native state, such as Androscoggin, Hancock, Lincoln, Saco, and Kennebec. As the children grew older, he gave us the privilege of naming some of the new colts. I remember at one time when he was branding the colts, he told me I could have one of the colts if I could name it within 5 minutes. I began dancing up and down, saying, "What shall I name it? What shall I name it?" Vivian ran to the house where Grandmother Clark was visiting. Grandmother Clark told her since this was a trick of her father's, and it now was the month of May, she should name her Trixie May. Vivian got the horse. Huh. Vivian, I guess. Yeah, I guess whoever could name it within 5 minutes. Okay. The love of horses was strong in Father. He cared for them well, and because of his early life at the homestead and his training in the cavalry, he was a superior horseman. He had a neat, self-made brand with which he branded the horses on the left thigh. It was made with the two letters L and D, his first two initials. The right tip of the L joined the center of the left side of the D. The D was 2.5 inches high and 2 inches wide. Oh, sorry, that was the L. And the D was 3 inches high and the half moon part 1 3/4 inches at the widest part. Following is an exact copy of the brand. The last time I knew of his brand, my brother Clark had it. There it is. Okay, I quote the following from the letter written by Father to his brother James. Okay, so that was the letter before was to James as well. I think they did some business together. March 23rd, 1882. Dear brother, I lost the most of my horses that cold winter. I have only a few now. I'm not complaining though, as the Lord has blessed me, as I haven't had any sickness of a serious nature in my family, and all the family that I have been blessed with are well with me and hearty. My brother-in-law, E.L. Clark, has gone east as far as Iowa to buy horses. He will bring them here as he is in the horse raising business. He has purchased some horses in Illinois and Kentucky heretofore. Some make money fast by buying them east, bringing them here and selling them. I would like for you to come here for several reasons. I think you would like the country and would like to settle here. As for making money, buying cattle here and driving them to Cheyenne is a very profitable business. If you should buy horses for the Utah market, bring the Percheron Norman or any heavy draft crossed once. Stallions are more in demand than the others. That is, if you expect to get a good price for them. Mr. Clark sold a 3-year Norman stallion here just before he left for $1,000. Half-breed Normans or Clydes would sell for $700 on top according to style and heft. You might find some other business here that would suit you. Stock raising here now is as good a business as one could engage in. You can buy stock here cheap. Yearlings, $7. 2-year-olds, $12. Cows from 15 to 20. There's plenty of range for them. You would only have to move them into the mountains in the spring. They will come into the valley in the fall or winter and do well with a little care. There's always a good market for them. I would like you to come here and look at the country before you make any decisions. I have sent you a Deseret News today. Read the sermon in it. It will explain a few of the principles that we believe in. He ended this letter as most of them since joining the Mormon Church by asking for birth and death dates of loved ones and relatives. Okay, that's the end of business ventures, I think. Yep, now next time will be letters to home.